It's funny how life can change in the blink of an eye. I'm Megan, and as I sit here reflecting on everything that's happened, I'm reminded of how quickly things can unravel. I'm in my early 30s now, living a simple life in a small town near Portland, Oregon. It's a peaceful place where everyone knows each other and the pace of life is slow. I used to think this was all I needed until I met Ryan. It all started at a cozy cafe just a few blocks from my apartment. I was there, sipping my coffee and trying to finish a book when he walked in. Ryan was charming in that effortless way people can be. Early 30s, with a warm smile and an easy confidence that drew people in. He seemed perfect, or at least perfect for me at that moment. We struck up a conversation about the book I was reading, and before long, we were meeting for coffee regularly. It wasn't long before our meetings turned into something more serious. We had so much in common, and it felt like we were two pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. Our relationship grew quickly. We bonded over shared interests, and our discussions soon turned to marriage. Ryan worked in an office job, and though my own occupation wasn't specifically mentioned, I valued my independence and self-respect deeply. I had always been proud of standing on my own 2 feet, and Ryan seemed to appreciate that about me. But as they say, the honeymoon phase doesn't last forever. It was when I met Ryan's parents that things began to shift. His mother, Karen, was in her late 60s and came across as the type who was used to getting her way. From the moment we were introduced, it was clear she had strong opinions about everything. She was overbearing and manipulative, a real piece of work. I tried my best to make a good impression, but it didn't take long for me to realize that Karen wasn't fond of me. Karen had a controlling nature and an unyielding grip on Ryan. She was obsessed with maintaining control over him and, of course, protecting the family wealth. During one of our meetings, she insisted that we sign a prenuptial agreement before we could even think about marriage. Ryan and I discussed it, and although I was hesitant, I agreed. The prenuptial agreement had a clause that stipulated if either of us cheated, the offending partner would have to pay $70,000. I was willing to accept this to make Ryan and Karen happy, even though the idea of it left a bad taste in my mouth. Little did I know, this agreement was just the beginning of the problems to come. As Ryan and I settled into our life together, Karen's interference only grew worse. She focused relentlessly on our struggles to conceive a child. Her constant criticism wore me down and began to erode my self-esteem. It felt like no matter what I did, I couldn't escape her harsh judgment. Ryan, unfortunately, didn't stand up for me. He seemed to let Karen's opinions dictate our lives, leaving me feeling increasingly isolated. I had never felt so alone in a relationship before. My self-respect was slipping away, and I started to question my place in Ryan's life. The tipping point came when I began to notice changes in Ryan's behavior. He started taking late-night work calls and paying more attention to his appearance, which struck me as odd. My suspicions grew, and I couldn't ignore the growing unease in my gut. That's when I decided to hire a private investigator. It was a desperate measure, but I needed to know the truth. The investigator's report was devastating. Ryan was having an affair. I felt shattered. But instead of confronting him right away, I decided to keep the information to myself and plan my next move carefully. I was determined not to let Ryan or Karen see me as a pushover. It wasn't just Ryan's betrayal that hurt. It was the realization that Karen was part of this betrayal too. I overheard a conversation between them one evening, and it was like a punch to the gut. They were discussing how they could use me to fund an expensive birthday gift for Karen and then discard me. I was nothing more than a pawn in their scheme. That's when I knew I had to take control of the situation. So, I started making my plans. I knew that if I wanted to get out of this mess and come out on top, I needed to be strategic. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I wasn't going to let Ryan and Karen get away with treating me like this. Little did they know, their actions had set the stage for a dramatic turn of events. The road ahead was going to be challenging, but I was ready to reclaim my life and show them that I was stronger than they ever thought. It's strange how a single conversation can change everything. That evening when I overheard Ryan and Karen plotting their plan to use me for Karen's birthday gift, I felt a surge of clarity. I wasn't just a victim in this situation. I was someone who could take control and turn things around. I just had to be smart about it. Ryan and I continued our daily routines, but the tension was palpable. I kept the investigators' findings close to my chest, using every ounce of willpower to avoid confronting him. My resolve was to make sure my exit would be as powerful as it was calculated. I needed to hit them where it would hurt the most, and that meant waiting for the right moment. Karen's 72nd birthday was approaching, and I knew this would be my chance. It would be the perfect opportunity to set my plan in motion. I decided to host a grand dinner at one of Portland's most luxurious restaurants. It would be a night of elegance and extravagance, a night that would end with a bang, literally and metaphorically. As the day of the birthday dinner drew nearer, I was meticulous in my preparations. Every detail was accounted for: the menu, the seating arrangement, the timing. I wanted everything to be perfect. Ryan and Karen, unaware of my plan, were focused on their own excitement. Karen was particularly looking forward to the event, basking in the attention and luxury of the evening. The night of the dinner arrived, and everything went according to plan. The restaurant was filled with the rich and the powerful, and Karen was in her element, enjoying the spotlight. Ryan seemed particularly proud, showing off how well he'd arranged the evening. I played my role perfectly, looking every bit the supportive wife, though inside, I was a storm of anticipation. As the evening drew to a close, Ryan took the floor to make an announcement. The guests fell silent, their curiosity piqued. With Karen at his side, Ryan looked at me and said, "Megan and I have decided to part ways. We're getting a divorce." His voice was steady, but I could see the anxiety behind his eyes. Karen's face was a mask of faux sympathy, though I could sense the glee behind her composed expression. The room erupted in murmurs, but I remained calm. I had prepared for this moment. As we left the restaurant, I made sure Ryan and Karen would be left with the bill. Earlier in the evening, I had blocked access to our shared bank account, making sure they were stuck with the $25,000 restaurant bill. It was a small but satisfying act of revenge. Once we were outside, I put my plan into action. I had a folder with me, containing divorce papers and a copy of the prenuptial agreement. Ryan's confusion was evident when I handed them over. The prenuptial agreement clearly stated that if either party was unfaithful, they would owe the other $70,000. Ryan's face went pale as he read the document. "What is this, Megan?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Consider it a parting gift," I replied coolly. "I've had enough of your lies and manipulation." Karen tried to intervene, but I could see the panic in her eyes. "Megan, you don't need to do this," she said, her voice desperate. "Let's talk about this." I ignored her. "I've made my decision," I said firmly. "I'm leaving, and you'll have to deal with the consequences." The look of disbelief on Ryan's face was something I would never forget. I knew it was going to be a rough few days for them, but I was determined to stand my ground. They had used me, belittled me, and tried to discard me as if I were nothing. This was my chance to show them that I was not someone to be underestimated. As I walked away from the restaurant, I felt a strange mix of relief and empowerment. The next morning, I knew I had to confront Ryan and Karen with the reality of their situation. They would have to come to terms with the fallout of their actions and the financial burden I had imposed upon them. I was ready for whatever came next, knowing that my actions had set the stage for a new chapter in my life. The journey wasn't over, but I had taken the first crucial step in reclaiming my power and my dignity. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was determined to face it with the strength and